Hey listeners, this episode is brought to you by EF World Journeys. Today's travelers want more from their vacation. That's why more people are turning to travel professionals to help them explore the world with confidence. For nearly 35 years, EF World Journeys has been the go-to guided experiential travel company for leisure travelers who want to learn more about people, places, and cultures around the world. Its brands EF Ultimate Break, EF Go Ahead Tours, and EF Adventures serve everyone from Gen Z to baby boomers and help tens of thousands of US and Canadian travelers every year explore 400 bucket list destinations. EF World Journeys is one of North America's biggest guided group tour companies, and its expert planned immersive itineraries focus on the big moments and little things that make travel and meeting new people so rewarding. It's experiential travel that goes deeper, where every journey builds a connection, inspires wellness, and fuels a lifelong love of learning. EF World Journeys, guided by experts, driven by curiosity. To learn more, go to efworldjourneys.com.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Skift Travel Podcast. I'm Sarah Kopit, joined as always by Seth Borko. And Seth, what are we going to talk about today?
We got a lot to talk about. I mean, you and I were just in Abu Dhabi for the Global Forum East. It's my first time I've ever been to the United Arab Emirates.
Oh, that's crazy.
I know.
I've actually been there many times.
You're a pro,
I'm a
right?
pro. Yeah, I'm a pro at the UAE.
Well, we were just, me and you both were just in the UAE for our Global Forum East, and that's what we're going to talk about. The future of tourism, travel's shifting center of gravity as it moves further eastward. I think we're going to discuss our impressions of the conference, what we learned, and maybe I'll even tell you my favorite thing that I did in Abu Dhabi. But first, we're going to discuss some news, right?
Yeah, we are. We're going to discuss what happened on Tuesday night here in the United States of America. For all of you who were watching, we had a bit of a kind of political sea change. And I mean, I don't know, like numerically, like if we're going to the big board, like how, the Electoral College, like all this kind of good stuff, seats in Congress, blah, blah, blah. It's an off-cycle election. The tenor, the tone, the conversation, the mood of Democrats in the United States is now profoundly different. We saw a Democratic governor in New Jersey, a Democratic governor in Virginia, and a Democratic socialist as the mayor of New York City, which wasn't a big surprise, but still is it's still like every time I think about it, it still surprises me.
This was a groundbreaking election in New York City. I mean, we're both based here, and I know we have a global audience, so I don't want to get too into the weeds of local politics, but it was the highest turnout of any mayoral race in New York City in my lifetime, really.
Oh, absolutely. There was a line when I went to vote.
Yeah,
like
in an off cycle.
Yes.
By the way, not Americans will be flummoxed to hear this, but no one shows up to vote for an off-cycle election. If the president's not on the ballot, you don't show up to vote. But so in New York City, Zohran Mamdani, the Democratic Socialist turned, I guess, Democrat, won the mayoralty.
Oh, no. I disagree.
He ran as a Democrat. He won the Democratic Party nomination.
That's true, but I thought he may have taken a more conciliatory tone after his victory, but he has not. He's waving the progressive flag left and right in these first few days, which actually surprised me.
Yeah. Well, yeah. It's a very interesting time and place to be in New York City. It's very exciting for some, much less exciting for others. It's a controversial mayor, but he won convincingly with a big majority, with huge turnout. And if you're wondering what the new mayor means for New York City tourism, Skift has an exclusive interview that we ran with you, and our CEO Rafat interviewed Zohran in the days just before the election, and he gave us some pretty scoopy, pretty exclusive news about his plans. And now that he's officially the mayor and sworn in and taken his job at day one in City Hall, he gave us an exclusive view on what he intends to do for New York City tourism, right, Sarah?
Yeah, so let's play that right now.
So the first question that I would have is, I know you've talked about Airbnb and how that intersects with affordability and housing. What's your current view on the Airbnb in the city? And the reason I ask that is the studies that are coming out says that the regulation of Airbnbs hasn't brought the rents down. So I wonder what your views on that is.
I continue to believe that New York City's housing crisis can only be addressed if housing is available and affordable for all New Yorkers. And my support for Local Law 18 was to ensure that apartments which would otherwise be used solely for short-term rentals would actually become available for tenants who truly need them. I do also believe, however, that in order to deliver lower rents across the city, we have to take a systemic approach that addresses the totality of the housing crisis. And so, to me, it will require the kind of investment and construction of additional housing across the 5 boroughs, the likes of which we haven't seen in the last few years. And I think the public sector has a role to play in that. The private sector has a role to play in that. And we have to do this such that it is easier to afford to live in this city. There won't be one neat trick that does it. It has to all be done together in tandem.
Tourism into the city obviously is a huge part of the NYC ecosystem. Some of the international numbers are falling to US overall. Obviously, NYC is at the receiving end of it as well. The issues around affordability for locals also translates into affordability for tourists. So how much do you think the city should care for affordability for tourists? And I guess Airbnb plays a part in it as well.
You know, what I've heard from many in the tourism industry is that it is far more a function of Donald Trump's immigration policies and the fact that so many tourists and immigrants who already live here and those who would think of visiting here are not seeing themselves as being welcome in our city and in our country. And these policies from the Trump administration are destructive, not only at a moral level, but also at an economic level. We're talking about having lost $4 billion in tourism revenue and 2 million international visitors. And this has massive knock-on effects for the cultural and economic and civic health of our city. And I look forward to being the first immigrant mayor of our city in generations, and also making it clear that this city will continue to be a welcoming beacon for tourists from across the world. And we can also not rest on our laurels any longer. And we actually need to invest in our city's tourism agency, which has had a relatively stagnant budget over the last decade, to make the case to people across the world that this is a city that they should choose to visit.
So you're saying you would consider increasing their budget?
Yes.
Okay. Question on the World Cup. You have said that you want to appoint a tourism czar. Elaborate if you can, because a big worry, obviously, with the World Cup soccer, as we call it here, I guess, coming up. And is that a template, you think, for other large events in the city?
Yes, I think it's time for us to recognize the economic opportunity that these kinds of events can generate for all New Yorkers, not just those who are going to the games. And the World Cup is the largest sporting event across the globe. It's a moment to not only reintroduce our city to the world, but also to ourselves.
Right.
And it's an opportunity for us to make the very kind of improvements that New Yorkers have been waiting for quite some time, whether it's the small-scale streamlining of the bureaucratic processes to have public events through our SAPO system, or it's actually having a czar who ensures that every agency's work is being tied together through the lens of this World Cup. And I take a lot of inspiration from the way in which the Bloomberg administration used their Olympic bid as a catalyst to transform the built environment of the city, but also a sense of political imagination across this city. And I lament that there has been such little discussion of this World Cup in the past few months and years. However, I will look to make the first 6 months of my administration one where we focus every single day on making sure this is a transformative experience, not just for those who visit, but for those who live here as well.
And have you thought of any people that you have in mind for this tourism czar role?
I haven't as yet, but whichever position we're thinking about, we are always going to make the assessment on the basis of excellence and a track record of delivering. And I think it's time that we actually understand ourselves as needing to learn from the examples of successful initiatives elsewhere across the world, bringing them here, as opposed to telling ourselves that nothing that worked elsewhere could ever work in this city.
Last question, a fun one. I'm sitting actually here in Abu Dhabi. I'll be back in New York tomorrow. Somebody visiting from Abu Dhabi to New York, you're the mayor, and they know the usual stuff. what 1 or 2 things would you suggest they should do in the city?
I would suggest that they come and try Adani Chai. Yeah, at any one of our incredible Yemeni coffee houses. I can't name my favorite because I'm trying to win this election. And I would also,
Jackson Heights? So
I would encourage them to come to Diversity Plaza and have some late
That's
night
true.
biryani
that's true.
at
That's
Kebab
true.
House, followed
my
by some
goodness.
pan.
You like Kebab King. You like Kebab King a lot.
Kebab.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of the most fun things about that, I'll give you a little bit of a behind the scenes as to what that was like when we did that. We knew we were going to get 5 minutes with him.
Yeah.
We ended up getting 7, which was, a huge coup. But we were in the UAE.
40% more.
There you go. The data nerd. Thank you for that, Seth. 40% more. And and we were at dinner, Rafat and I, when the call came in. And, we both had our phones out. And when it came in, Rafat was like, come on. And we ran into the other room and took the call. So it was kind of incredible. It was a little, because it was the days, right before, right? So when everything was as chaotic as possible for all of the candidates. So it was very cool. And so, you heard him, Zohran, just say that he wants to, increase the tourism budget for New York City.
Mhm.
And that was the big news. That was the news that he told us, that, we hadn't really heard from him what his travel and tourism agenda would be, given that he wants to raise taxes. He's very against Airbnb and has said that, or Airbnbs in New York City. Shouldn't say he's against Airbnb, he probably stays in them, they're nice for all of us. But he supports the so-called ban on Airbnbs in New York. So, but we hadn't heard him say that he wants to spend more money. He has said that he wants to, create a travel and tourism czar, which I think is probably a good idea.
I mean,
Coming up, in light of the 2026 looming catastrophe that may be the World Cup in New York City. I don't know.
and he was very focused on the interview
Yeah.
too, right? He said that
Yeah.
he wants to have, because the World Cup is coming very soon. If you're a longtime listener to the podcast, we actually interviewed the head of marketing for the New York, New Jersey FIFA regional kind of World Cup bid. And we asked her about, what are you going to do? It's going to be a nightmare. And she's very excited about the World Cup. But the answer was sort of that it's not up to FIFA or the local World Cup committees to fix that. It's up to the city, the state, and the federal government to make these things run. And I thought it was very interesting that Zohran zeroed in on that as a huge topic. And he actually said in that interview, and we can play the clip in just a second, that he's going to basically have a 6-month sprint, because he's not going to have a lot of time from when he gets sworn in to when the World Cup happens. He wants to have a 6-month sprint to make this the best possible World Cup for New York City as possible. And again, as a reminder, New York City will be hosting the finals of the World Cup just next year.
It's in 6 months. It's crazy. And the thing is, for all of you who don't live in New York City, it's that even on the best of days, getting in between New York City and New Jersey, where they're actually going to be playing the games or the matches, as you can tell, I'm probably not the biggest soccer fan in the world.
The fact that you just call it soccer speaks to that.
Yeah, soccer games, whatever. I have
Football.
an 11-year-old who plays, in soccer games. I don't use the right terms. Anyway, and even on the best of days, it's a challenge to get in between these two places. So that's the big, I think for all of us who live here, it's the transportation issue. That therein lies I think what we all think is going to be.
And it's about squandering the tourism opportunity of a lifetime.
Yes.
Is frankly what I think it's also about. So you can read all about it on skift.com. I thought that was a great story. I was so proud of you and Rafat and the news team for getting that very exclusive interview. And it was great to see no one had asked Zohran about tourism before. And that's sort of the role of Skift. It's that tourism is big business. He's running for the mayor of the most important city in New York, and he'd given his opinions on a whole slew of economic topics, but I was glad that we asked him about tourism and got some really exciting and interesting answers. We also ran this story this week about TripAdvisor. That was the other great story from veteran legend Dennis Shaw.
Yeah. So TripAdvisor is going to merge its operations with Viator, and they are going to have about 20% layoffs. So that was a big scoop from Dennis. That wasn't known. So people, read all about it here first on Skift.
We heard it from Kayak as well. Dennis also reported on, and it's kind of like an accountant nerd thing. We won't get too into it, but there was a write down on the carrying value. So Kayak is a wholly owned subsidiary of Booking Holdings. The holdings in Booking Holdings is that they have multiple holding companies. And there was a write down, and it's for the accountants. It doesn't actually matter, but it just shows that there is ongoing pressure on the metasearch business. And it shows, I would also argue, I'm a glasses half full kind of research analyst. When we talk about pressure in metasearch, it also shows ongoing strength in Viator. This was something that we discussed on the last episode, was Get Your Guide and how well Get Your Guide is doing. And clearly this also shows, hopefully, we've had Matt Goldberg, the CEO of TripAdvisor, on the show before, and hopefully he appreciates this perspective, this take on it as well, like half full take, which is that it's kind of, in some ways also feels a little overdue that Viator has been a growing part of the TripAdvisor business, continues to do well. When Matt was on our podcast, he talked a ton about experiences and the growth of experiences. It's a shift towards the booking model instead of the metasearch model, which is a structurally stronger model. And so I think it does speak to the weakness of Meta. It speaks to the strength of experiences in OTA, though. So I thought that was another great story that your team was responsible for this week, Sarah.
Yeah. So just going back to our Global Forum East, what was your favorite hot take outcome from that? What was your favorite point that you learned?
Yeah. So let's, I guess, get into the meat of today's podcast. We're like 10 minutes in, get into the meat of today's podcast. We'll be doing a Joe Rogan 2-hour podcast before you know it.
Yeah.
This is obvious and this was known, but being there, I thought the focus on gaming continues to fascinate me. And this is not like a surprise. It's not new news. I think just how open for business, especially the Emirates, are. And we had some really interesting sessions where we discussed I spoke about this in my research presentation. It's increasingly, we talk about these corridors, these travel corridors. It is increasingly like a connecting corridor, which it has been for a very long time, but increasingly also the final destination of how they've done a really great job of trying to invest in live tourism, in attracting regional and now long-haul tourism. We had a session with Rednote, which is a Chinese social media app, and with Make My Trip, which is an Indian online travel agency. And just speaking about the Chinese and Indian traveler, their interest in visiting the Middle East. You had a great session with, what was his name again? I forget, the yacht collection.
Yeah, Ritz-Carlton Yacht Collection. Yeah.
And the CEO of Ritz-Carlton Yacht Collection just kept pulling more and more incredible businesses that he helped run as well. And he does the Ritz-Carlton Yacht Collection. Yeah. He does a bunch of gaming stuff. He does he does those holographic shows where they bring ABBA to a million things. And I thought that was a fascinating session, by the way. And I love that focus on how those things are going to drive, how they're investing in those sort of experiences from the luxe, the yachts, all the way down to the holograph shows, down to the gaming.
Yeah. And we had our opening cocktail reception. We had it at the F1 track on Yas Island. And I'd never been there before. And that was something that was also for me, just kind of seeing it with my own eyes, like what this island that they've built that's exclusively for play, as they say, kind of like what that looks like in real life. And it was pretty incredible. I was, just kind of being out there on the F1 track and seeing, I mean, even with the Warner Brothers, it was like a water, one of those big water towers with Warner Brothers on it. And I was like, is that a studio? Is that a lot? I don't think it was a lot, but it looked like a lot. And it was just, I don't know. It's just kind of incredible to see what they've built in such a short amount of time, what they've produced, how they've doubled down on this. And yeah, it was pretty extraordinary.
It's a really interesting airline and airport conversations. I don't know how many crossover listeners we have with the Airline Weekly podcast, but just a lot of fascinating stuff happening there. I like the Oman Air CEO talking about his point-to-point strategy and how they're trying to grow that business there. And Oman sounds like a fascinating country to visit.
I was going to say, I want to go to Oman. We should do the podcast from Oman.
Do the podcast from Oman.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
Abu Dhabi airports, I thought it was incredible that Abu Dhabi airports has U.S. customs pre-clearance in Abu Dhabi. And they were talking about, and I didn't quite, obviously as a traveler who's traveling to the United States as an American, it's a convenient, but it's a nice to have, because I have something called global entry, which is like this face scan. I get through customs really, really quickly. But what they were saying, which didn't occur to me, is how it's a really strategic advantage for tourists and for connecting traffic, because airlines that plan to fly out of Abu Dhabi airport can fly into domestic terminals in the United States. And so if someone from India wants to visit San Francisco, and they're flying through Qatar, through Doha, which is like their number one rival, they will have to land in JFK, deboard their plane, transfer terminals, recheck their bags, and do that whole thing. But when you've pre-cleared customs in Abu Dhabi, you can land in the domestic terminal and go through the domestic transfers. And I didn't quite, until it was said, I mean, I guess because I'm just an idiot, but until it was said explicitly, I didn't realize what a strategic advantage it would be for attracting interest in airlines and route planning, and for actually driving a truly differentiated thing that's very hard for another airport to replicate. Because if I fly to JFK, another airport can be like, well, I fly to JFK too. But if I fly to JFK and I can get you to Chicago on a domestic connection, that's a huge advantage, which I love that kind of interesting strategy. I thought that was fascinating.
Yeah, the Abu Dhabi airport, I've just decided, I've called it. Like, people ask us a lot, what's your favorite airport? And that is mine. It is now mine. It's a fun airport. It's brand spanking new. It has all kinds of cool stuff. They have all these, did you notice all the food trucks when you were walking through?
I try and get in and out of airports as quickly as I possibly can, Sarah.
Yeah. All right, fine. You're no fun. Okay. There's a bunch of food trucks that are like super international, like from all over. I mean, basically the GCC, but everywhere inside the airport. So It's great. And then you clear customs. And personally, as not to get too much into my how I fly strategy, but so the flight that goes from Abu Dhabi to New York City, it takes off at 3 a.m. So you're dead tired. You've already gone through customs. It's a 14-hour flight. So you can get on that flight, go to sleep, wake up, have breakfast, watch a movie, and then you land at 9:30 in the morning, New York time. The kids are already in school. So by the time you get home, it's, the house is empty. Presumably your partner has cleaned up and, you're ready to carry on with your life. And so that is my favorite flight, and it is my favorite airport. And that's on Etihad, by the way. That's EY1, my favorite flight, my favorite airline.
I love flying flight numbers that are single-digit flight numbers, and I love flying a 1. This is a really weird thing.
Yeah.
But I love looking up what is United Airlines 1, what is British Airways 1, what is Singapore Airlines 1.
Is it usually to New York? Like, is British Airways 1, like London to New York?
I think it is, but let's look it up. I think that I love that kind of stuff, and it does sort of tell you a little bit. Oh, it's canceled. BA1 was reserved for the Concorde. So it was to New York, but they haven't. At least that's what a quick mid-podcast Google search says, is that it was reserved for the Concorde. But I think it's cool. I love flying those when I'm flying, even a sub 5, I will take.
Yeah.
Because it means it's like a priority flight for that airline. I think it's cool.
It's the biggest flight. It's their flagship flight. Probably get the best planes too.
And one of the things I shared in my research presentation, Sarah, which I probably should have led with, but I do, or someone from my team does a research presentation at pretty much every forum we went at. What I did for some research for this forum was we looked at all the international global travel data, and we looked at the most visited, every country that reports to the UN and says we received X number of international tourists. We used all that data, and we pulled the GPS coordinates for each of those countries, and then we weighted it up. And we took a weighted average of the GPS coordinates. And there's a whole rabbit hole about how you average GPS coordinates, and I won't get into it. And I used a slightly different method than, a true whatever, but because the Earth is a sphere, not flat, unless of course you've seen the light about the whatever Earth is flat jokes, never mind. But because it's sphere, it's a little more complicated. But if you average out all of those GPS coordinates and you say, not what is the most visited, not even what's the median, but like what is kind of like the average point that an international tourist sort of lands at. And it's kind of cool. It's not a real metric, but it's an interesting metric. And in the 90s, it was somewhere around Western Spain, which kind of makes sense because it reflects this huge amount of tourism in Western Europe and in North America and in the United States.
Yeah.
And then in the 2000s, it was somewhere around Italy. So as there's more and more people visiting China and visiting the Middle East, that average gets pulled. And today it's somewhere around Greece or Turkey. And again, this is not supposed to be like a highly scientifically accurate thing, but I think it's cool to put it in numbers and say travel's center of gravity has shifted literally thousands of miles across the entire It has shifted a Mediterranean Sea, effectively, is what has happened in our lifetimes. And, well, that's not, again, like the most... the math is complicated. It's not like a real metric, but it's a cool yardstick just to think about a way to visually represent in miles instead of in whatever, in miles, 2,500 mile shift eastward, give or take, or 2,500 kilometer shift eastward. Yeah. It's big difference, miles, but a huge shift eastward in travel. And that reflects more and more people traveling within and to Asia, Middle East, and Africa. And I think that was one of my big things for my research presentation, one of the big themes from the conference. And I did just want to share that with our podcast listeners so that they have a sense of this is a real thing that's happening, this eastward trend. So it was fascinating to be there and see where it all happened.
Yeah. I mean, apropos of nothing, I suppose. We just got back from the UAE, and in an hour and a half, I'm leaving for Saudi Arabia. Like, I'm going back today, like right after the pod. I have to pack, and then I'm going. So, I mean, it's business travel, but
I'm very interested in going to Saudi Arabia these days.
Yeah.
I always talk about this. I want to go to the Red Sea. I want to go scuba diving in the Saudi Arabian Red Sea. I want to see it.
Yeah. Well, I've been in the Egyptian Red Sea, and it is incredible.
Amazing. So let's come into the home stretch maybe of this podcast. We've got some games to play. I did promise you I would tell you my favorite activity in the UAE.
What'd you do?
Well, we like to do this winners and losers segment, and I'll include these. I would say my winner of the week, and I know who you're going to pick, but my winner of the week, I went to the Abu Dhabi Falcon Hospital, and my winner of the week are the pampered falcons of the United Arab Emirates, who have an entire hospital for them. And I took a tour of the hospital, and dear listener, I regret to inform you, it's a hospital. It's an incredible hospital. They have full medical facilities, but the falcons get general annual checkups. Some of them get biannual checkups. And so you think you're going to see a bunch of sick birds. It's actually a bunch of really healthy birds in for their annual checkup. They've embraced preventative medicine. We haven't figured out how to do preventative medicine for humans in the United States, but in Abu Dhabi and Dubai, they do it for falcons. And it turns out that their talons get overgrown, and they can get ingrown talons basically and stab themselves. So what they do is they put the falcons under anesthesia, and then they file down they trim their nails and they file them. So it is called the Abu Dhabi Hospital, and they were lovely to me. I don't want this to be an insult to them, but it's kind of a hospital and day spa, if you ask me.
For the birds. So it's like falcon mani-pedis.
It's absolutely falcon mani-pedis. I mean, they do they do falcon surgery as well, but in between falcon surgery, they're doing falcon mani-pedis, and I love that for the falcons. I love that for the Emiratis. I just love it. I love it. So that's both what I did, and my winner of the week is the falcons that are relaxed, recharged, and mani-pedied up. So love that.
So I really can't beat that. Seth told me about this at the F1 track. So here we are. We're on the F1 track in Abu Dhabi, and Seth and I are just chatting. And he says to me, "Have I told you I'm very into falconry?" And I'm like, "Why no, Seth? You have not." And then we went into it. Hopefully, maybe for the social clips, we can get. I saw pictures that night of the falcons that Seth took on his phone. We have some of those. Hopefully, we can share them with you. I also learned that often the falcons, when they fly, they get their own business class seats in the UAE.
It's amazing. Yeah, they can get business seats. They have Falcon passports. I saw the Falcon. I mean, I do love falconry. To be clear, for our listeners, if there's anyone with a falconry connection in the podcast audience, hit us up ASAP because I'm into falconry. I've been hunting with birds of prey in New York, and I'm kind of joking about Falcon Mani-Pedis, but it was actually an incredible tour, and I really enjoyed it. And you should do it if you're in the region.
Yeah. So my winner of the week would have to be the new mayor-elect of New York City, Zohran Mamdani. So he definitely wins, but I don't know if I can beat the Falcons.
A generational shift. I mean, one of these is more important than the other.
But still. All right. So last week we also did predictions. I said the government shutdown would last through Thanksgiving, which I continue to believe. So I'm gonna double down on that one. Bet me a coffee. Yeah.
Well, you know what? I will bet you a coffee on that one because we saw that
they're gonna shut down the airspace. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Secretary Duffy is amping up the pressure. They're starting to cancel flights. We're heading into Thanksgiving weekend. I'll take. You know what?
You'll take that bet.
I think you have better odds than I wish you had. I wish it was an obvious. I'll take that bet, but I will take that bet. I just said earlier on the podcast, I'm the optimist, so I will be the optimist that will get the government reopened by Thanksgiving.
By Thanksgiving, let's see what day. It's the 6th. I think it's the 27th. So that's 20 days.
All right.
Got 20 days. Save you that coffee.
All right. I think we're coming into the home stretch of this podcast episode.
Yeah. Are we done for the day, Seth?
I think, Sarah, you are dismissed. You've got a lot of packing to do. You've got to be in Saudi Arabia. I would love to hear all about it when you get back. So,
absolutely. I'll give you the full lowdown. I'm so excited. I've not really been. I've been at the airport, but that's it. So I'm psyched.
All right. Well, thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, we're trying out some different formats with the podcast. So let us know what you thought, what you liked. If you liked it, of course, thumbs up, subscribe, or follow this podcast wherever you get it. You can reach us via email. It's not podcast@skift.com. And we would love to hear from you.
Yeah. If you want to give us some suggestions about what we should talk about, send those over too. What do you want to hear us talk about? Yep. Okay.
All right.
See you next week. Bye.
See you next one. Bye.
Hey listeners, this episode is brought to you by EF World Journeys. Today's travelers want more from their vacation. That's why more people are turning to travel professionals to help them explore the world with confidence. For nearly 35 years, EF World Journeys has been the go-to guided experiential travel company for leisure travelers who want to learn more about people, places, and cultures around the world. Its brands EF Ultimate Break, EF Go Ahead Tours, and EF Adventures serve everyone from Gen Z to baby boomers and help tens of thousands of US and Canadian travelers every year explore 400 bucket list destinations. EF World Journeys is one of North America's biggest guided group tour companies, and its expert planned immersive itineraries focus on the big moments and little things that make travel and meeting new people so rewarding. It's experiential travel that goes deeper, where every journey builds a connection, inspires wellness, and fuels a lifelong love of learning. EF World Journeys, guided by experts, driven by curiosity. To learn more, go to efworldjourneys.com.